We now have our mbook set up, so let's go back to our detail screen and see if we can save a book. Add a few of the properties there real quick. So let's start with title, because that seems to be important. And how do I pass the title? Where do I get that information from? I can say book data. Remember this book data. We have access to it because we're inside of our show book details and we created that at the top there. Okay, very simple. I'm going to say book data, and I'm going to go ahead and get the title to a string as such. And then I'm going to add authors. Again, book data, authors to a string. This is very boring. I do realize this, but nonetheless, we have to do this. And description to string. Put past the categories, book data, categories to string. Looks like it doesn't need me to do so, so let's go ahead and replace just with a dot. As it says, it doesn't need that either. Okay, gotta continue here. I'm gonna put notes. For now, notes just gonna have an empty string as such, because that will be added later. That's fine. And photo URL, book data, images, that thumbnail, and then published date, the same thing. Page count, book data. Now page count is going to come in as integer, I believe, so I'm going to say toString. Is that true? Let's see. All right, and then toString like this. Nope, page count is indeed just a string, so it's okay. We can do as such. And let's see, rating. For now, we'll just say 0.0. That's just the beginning. And then I'm going to pass Google Book ID. Say Google Book ID. Remember, this Google Book ID, we are getting that from our Google Book ID, where we got from book info, that data.id. Last but not least, we're going to pass our user ID. To get our user ID, again, because we love Firebase and Firebase is everywhere, I can say Firebase auth, like that, and get instance, and I can get current user, and get UI ID, and say toString like this. And there we go. This will give us a UI ID, our ID of the current user that's logged in. And I know for sure you will have a current user ID because you can't enter or you can't do anything in this app without having an account. So you will have an ID. And there you have it. So now we have created this object, our book object, which is ready to be saved onto our database. So let's go to our save to Firebase. Notice this book has been passed, right? So now here we have created indeed our database instance there. Val, let's say database collection as such, and I'm going to say DB. I'm going to say collection. I'm going to create a collection right now. It's going to be called books. Okay, I'm going to use those. All right, so I'm going to put an if statement here to make sure that all is good. I'm going to say if the string, whatever we getting that object, is not empty. If that's the case, then we are ready to go. Else, we're going to do something else. Okay, so inside here, because we know the book is not empty, so it's actually a valid book. This is where I'm going to say, well, DB collection. You can use that collection reference and say .add. Look at that. And then I'm going to add our book object. And then I'm going to attach an add on success listener as such. And I'm going to say document ref as such, so we can check if things are good. We're going to be clever here a little bit. Well, the idea is that, okay, so once that book is saved, right, we are going to snap the reference ID of that book, because anything that is saved in the database will have a reference ID, its own ID. What I mean by that, when we save something, that document is created, we're going to have this ID, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to save the book. And the moment we save the book, we get the document reference. It's going to be this ID. And then right after we do that, we're going to update the same book, one field, and add the new ID for the book. In this case, we're going to go back to our mBook, passing the ID in this ID field. Because remember, this ID field is actually going to be inside of the book, which we don't have here. I'm just referencing what you can see, but the idea is the same. We're actually going to have it as a property or a field in our document. Because you see, if I say users, this is a document, this is just a document ID, but I want to add that document ID, if you think about it, into the field. So I can then check later to see if where that book belongs and what it is and so forth. Okay, so where we are saved to database. Okay, saved to Firebase. Okay, so we have this document reference. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to say file, I'm going to say doc ID, and I'm going to say document reference. I'm going to get that ID right away. Okay, once I have that ID, then I'm going to say database. So I'm going to say DB collection, and I'm going to say, let's go to a document. This document, I need to pass the ID of this document. Well, this document is going to be document reference.id, or I could have just passed this ID that I created here. Let's do that, because it's the same thing, right? So now I'm getting to that document we just created, and then I'm going to say dot update. Now look how cool this is. I can update one field only if I need to. I don't have to update the whole document. Interesting. So in this case here, to update one field, we know that we need to pass a hash map of any type. So I'm going to just do it here. I'm going to say hash map of, I know, go back to book, I have this ID, which was ignored before, excluded, right, when we created this book. But now we're going to go back to it. We're going to get this ID. And to do so, I'm going to put inside of double quotes, say ID. I'm going to relate that to what? I'm going to say to our doc ID, like that. And of course, we want us to cast that as map like this. Does that make sense? So the moment we save this book that we saved, right away, when we know that there is a success that happened, so we were actually saved something, we have this document reference, which contains the ID of this document, a book that was just saved. What we do next is just we remove that ID, putting it inside of this doc ID, and then we go back, say collection, get that document ID that we just added, and I'm going to update one field ID and pass in the doc ID that we just got. And we can attach the add on complete listener such little lambda, and this is going to be a task which will have more information that we may need to use. So now I can say, well, okay, if all of that worked out, which is wonderful, we can test or check, right? I'm going to say if task is successful, right? Throw in the successful, that means we're good. What do I need to do? I'm going to say nav controller. In fact, at this point, because I don't have access to that, let's first of all make this a composable, and which means we need to change this. And I'm going to pass here a nav controller as such as well. Okay, so now I have access to nav controller. I'm going to say dot pop stack there. That's it. And then I'm going to also say add on failure listener. In this case, I'm just going to say log W like that, and just say something like, well, life is not good. Say error updating doc. Oops, this is gonna be, and this is where I put the actual document, like that, the exception per se, like this. Okay, all right, this we change this, save Firebase, and we need to pass nav controller like that. Let's just remove all of that, keep it what we had before. Okay, that should be okay because we're inside of a composable and then we have that issue, we can't call it. All right, let's check it out and see if this works. Okay, let's go. Okay, let's save Flutter today. Save. Okay, let's see if that's true because it took us back to where we needed to be. Let's, moment of truth, let's refresh. We should see a books collection there and hopefully with a book. And what do you know? We have a book. Voila. And it's exactly that book that we just added. Oh, this is so exciting, ladies and gentlemen. And look at this. This is important because we even added ID. Look at this ID. It's exactly the same as the book document ID, which is exactly what we wanted. We have the user ID. Wonderful. This is great. So let's say I'm going to add another book on running. About that one. Yes, I read about it, all the things. I can say save, and I get back there. If I come here, let's refresh. We should see the second book about running. There we go. Very well. It's working. All right. This is very exciting. Oh, all that work. And we're now seeing things actually happening. So we know things are working, and obviously the next thing we need to do is to come back to main here and start showing the books that we have been saving for this user, showing them here at least in the reading list. All right, I'll see you next.